Welcome to Sweethearts or Rivals. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Justin.
What are we doing today?
Today we're going to do a list.
And it's a list of your own creation.
It is. Hold on to your seats. So today we're going to do our top 5 games that instill a sense of narrative as we play them.
Okay.
Let me explain. Basically what it was is I was wondering about some of my favorite games and what made them my favorite games, and why there are other games that feature very interesting mechanisms that I still don't really enjoy that much. And I realized that what makes a game really awesome for me is that something in it instills a sense of narrative. Whether it's the way the mechanisms come together and what I'm doing, or the theme, something about it makes it so that as I'm playing the game, I feel like I'm playing out a story. And it's not necessarily that the game is trying to tell me a story. In fact, I tend not to like that as much. It's that I can make a story in my head as I am playing it. And that's what I remember afterwards. Even if I win or lose or whatever, 5 minutes later I remember the story, not who won or lost.
Right.
Yeah.
So our top 5 will be games that aren't telling us stories.
No.
Or that the main mechanic is us making up stories.
That is correct.
These are random games that have nothing to do with that. But we still make stories with them.
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
Which actually brings us to our 2 caveats.
Mm-hmm.
Games that actually the whole point of the game is that you create a story could not be on this list.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do like those kind of games.
Yes. And what are some of our favorites?
My absolute number 1 favorite is Once Upon a Time.
Right. Awesome game where the whole point is to create a story. Yeah. Awesome game.
And no one ever wants to play it with me.
That's because as soon as the whole point is to create a story, people are like,
My brain's so full of stories all the time that it's not an issue for me.
Yep. Another example of that's really good is Gloom.
Yes, Gloom.
Yeah. And the funny thing with Gloom is I just played it with a group of kids about a week ago. And when we first started playing, they were all like, at first they're all like, oh, I could just lay this on your character and it's like plus 10 points. That's good, right? And then after they got like, where they were able to focus on the mechanisms and not the fact that they're supposed to be telling a story, then suddenly they were able to tell a story and really got into it.
Yeah.
We might have to try Gloom some night with some people and then Once Upon a Time.
Yes, maybe you're right about that.
There you go. The other reason why that particular kind of game can't be on the list is because my list would basically just turn into a top 5 role-playing game.
True.
Yeah, because that's the whole point of that is to create stories and narratives. So, yeah. Our other caveat is games that tell a story to you, which most of the time I can't stand. But there are 2 games that we play that are really good at that.
I wonder if I have the same games as you.
What's one of yours?
Above and Below.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The mechanisms are excellent, and the way the story goes is I can see a narrative of what I'm doing in the game that then flows into them telling me a story. And plus the fact that you have a choice and whether or not you succeed or fail. Awesome. Yeah, love that. The second one I had was Dead of Winter.
I had that one as well.
Yeah. And it's because the stories, even though, again, it's telling you a story, but it's not telling you everything. It's telling you, it's giving you a couple of hooks, and then what you choose makes the rest of the story happen.
Right.
Yeah, so it does it really well.
And we're doing our favorite games that we like to play, but I also just have to mention this one other game that does it really well.
What's that?
Which is Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah.
The reason I don't enjoy playing Robinson Crusoe is it seems like the game itself takes pleasure in being mean against me.
Yeah.
And the game is an inanimate object, and the game itself seems like it takes pleasure in making my game hard.
Yeah.
That makes me cry a little bit, so I can't play it. But the stories that come out of that game are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Not our favorite, but it's a good game.
Yeah.
Right on.
A good narrative.
Yeah. Our caveats aside, we're now looking at the top 5 games that don't tell you a story, that their point isn't to create a story, and yet when we play them, we really enjoy them, and there's a story that's being told either in our minds or we're just saying it out loud.
Right.
Has nothing to do with the gameplay at all. Like the game in no way says if you create a story, you get bonus points.
Right. And my list goes in order of how much I love the stories when I rethink about them later on.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. Mine's not. Mine's just one of my favorite games.
Okay.
That do that.
Okay.
So we start with number 5?
Yep.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Arcadia Quest.
Nice. Arcadia Quest.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you've got these characters and you're going to keep them on a campaign, so you get invested in them, and like their whole campaign just becomes a story.
Yeah.
Like, remember that time when we went and there was that Spear Beastman, and oh my goodness, Leroy Jenkins like just rushed out and like killed it. And then like later on, like in the last campaign, you're like, oh, we went to face Lord Fang, and then Leroy had this really cool whatever artifact that let him do this really cool stuff.
Definitely. When you walk away from that game, you've got a lot of stories like in your mind about the awesomeness of that whole campaign.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arcadia Quest did not make my list.
Weird.
And I think the only reason it didn't is because I don't really look at it so much as a narrative as just straight up role playing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It does make sense though. Like, it really should have been on my list.
But you relate it too much to role playing.
Yeah.
So it fell off the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for me, Arcadia Quest is one of those games where I was like, okay, this is the strategic move to make. But I'm playing Grom, so he's just going to charge blindly in there and try to kill stuff because that would be cool. So that's one of the things about games that like kind of weave a narrative is sometimes that narrative can take over and the strategy can go right out the window. And sometimes when you don't really know what to do strategically,
You're right.
you can just be like, well, you know what? It makes sense thematically or story or narratively to do this, and it can help you.
Right.
Cool.
What's your 5?
Now, my number 5 is Firefly,
Firefly.
the game.
It was on my short list.
Yeah.
But I felt like, for me, I'll just make it short because this is your number 5.
Okay.
Like, there's already a show about it.
Yeah.
So that's all the stories. And when I played Firefly,
Yeah.
I just think of the show. Like,
Sure.
I don't necessarily get my own stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
It helps when you don't, like, if I sat there and played it and I had, like, Malcolm Reynolds and a bunch of the Firefly crew, then I could see that. But where everything gets mixed up and I have a different captain and maybe one or two of the crew join up for a little while, it becomes like a whole other Firefly alternate universe.
No, there's only one captain. Captain Tight Pants is the one.
There you go. And I get caught up in the narrative. Like, what would my crew do? Why are they doing this? Are they really going to trust Niska? Yeah, I'm going to get a bunch of points if I do this, but you know what? My crew's all moral, so I'm not. And I get this story going, and I just follow it.
Cool. Maybe with the new Firefly game, the legendary encounters all have more stories.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
I can't wait for that.
We'll see.
Although it's tricky because with that one, you are actually cooperatively playing the episodes of the show.
So it won't.
So that might be a little bit different.
I don't know. We'll see.
I'm still looking forward to it. Can't wait to play that.
Yeah.
All right, so what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Castles of Mag and Ludwig.
Sweet.
Because, I mean, the whole game is about this crazy king and he wants a crazy castle. So then my stories come through once I have a few rooms and then I see what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's like you're thinking about walking through this castle and you're like, I have to walk through the baconry to get to the powder room?
That just makes sense.
Well, I guess you'd be all gross and greasy from the baconry, so you would have to fix your makeup.
Just awesome.
And then it's like, I just envision myself walking through this castle, having adventures in these ridiculous rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time.
That's a good one. Nice. My number 4 is The Gallerist.
Ooh, that made my short list too.
Yeah. And the reason for The Gallerist is because even though there's like 4 things to do, and that's it, there's so much involved in those 4 things you can do and how they're going to interconnect with everything that a lot of the time when I'm playing, I feel a little overwhelmed by the mechanisms, but it's all so thematic that there's a narrative of the adventures of this crazy gallerist that I am.
Right.
And a lot of the time I'm like, well, you know what? This just makes thematic sense in my story, so I'm just going to do that next.
Yeah.
So I find it helps me in that particular case.
And don't you find that once you get a piece of art, you're like envisioning in your brain what the artist actually looks like that made this crazy bunny sculpture?
Yeah.
Like, you know, is it a guy with a man bun, or is it like a girl with a hippie dress? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Now, a little aside to that, now that I'm thinking about exactly what I just said and the games of the gallerists we've played, which I've never won. Maybe I need to rethink my strategy there.
Maybe.
But the gallerist is my number 4.
Awesome.
Your number 3.
My number 3 is Last Will.
Last Will. Nice.
Because, of course, it's all about you've inherited all this money from some kooky relative that says you got to spend it all to get my inheritance.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And then the crazy adventures you go on to spend this money is just ridiculous.
It's always funny when you like go out to dinner and bring your horse.
Right. And then even the expansion, the Getting Sacked expansion.
Yeah.
And you're trying to anger your boss.
Yeah.
And you bring a horse to dinner with your boss.
And he's like so angry. What did you bring a horse for?
Well, it's my best friend.
Yeah.
And your boss is like, I thought I was your best friend. And you're like, nope, it's the horse.
Yeah. Ed's got you beat. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
You're fired.
Yo!
That's another good one.
It's not on your list?
It wasn't. I don't know why.
Weird. What kind of list do you have?
It's weird.
We'll find out, because what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Dominaire. Dun, dun, dun.
Dominaire?
Yes.
There's no story in that.
There is so much story in that for me, which is probably one of the reasons why I love it.
Okay. If there was a story for me, maybe I would like it.
Maybe. A lot of what's going on the board is just a bunch of cubes, but because it's a big conspiracy to take over the city, and you have these cards with powers that are very thematic, and they're all a part of your conspiracy, and you're revealing, you know, this is the first round you just reveal the guy who's like low man on the totem pole, but you're getting higher and higher in the ranks, and everything's coming together about how you're going to take over the city and everything. It's all very tense for me, and all the cubes disappear, and I'm just seeing like intrigue and fighting and warfare in the streets, and it's chaos. It's awesome. I love it.
You know what would have made that game better for me?
Meeples?
No, if they rethemed it as the Animaniacs with Pinky and the Brain.
Like, and they're fighting over the Warner Brothers studio?
Trying to take over the world, you know?
That works too.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And one of the things, I think this is the thing that does it the most, is there's one little thing that has absolutely nothing to do with the rules. And that is, on the very last round, the very last card that you reveal is the person you have been the entire time, the head of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
And I think that is absolutely amazing. Just that one little thing that has absolutely nothing to do with the strategy of the game just throws me right into it. I need to play that again soon.
We'll see.
What is your number 2?
Maybe if someone out there requests it.
There we go. Request it, please.
My number 2, you say?
Yes.
My number 2 is Village.
Ooh, number 2. Interesting. Why?
Why is it on the list? Or
why is it your number 2?
Higher.
Yeah, why isn't it higher? What's wrong with you?
It's number 2 for me.
Yep.
Because I like my number 1 better.
Makes sense.
And number 2, Village. It's one of those games where it just looks like a cube pusher, but it's kind of not, because you've got to place out these people that start on your farm. They're your family members.
Yeah.
Like you've had these people come out of your family and you love them, and they're beloved. But you're sending them off into the village to have these grand adventures and to be the best that they can be at their job.
Yeah.
So I've got Sandy. And Sandy goes off to the wagon making factory.
Yep.
And Sandy has worked there for ages. And Sandy loves their job. But all of a sudden one day, while Sandy's putting a wagon wheel on the wagon, it falls on him, or her, and crushes them.
It's horrible.
But because Sandy was such a great worker in the wagon making factory, Sandy's forevermore remembered in the Book of Chronicles.
Or is it because they can't believe he let a wagon wheel fall on him?
We'll never know.
Yes. Everything in that game creates stories, which is awesome. I'm not going to say anything else about it for now.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Viticulture with Tuscany. And it might be because we have just played a lot of Viticulture in Tuscany. But as soon as you unlock the extended board, especially with all of the extra cards and the structures mat, holy cow, there are so many different thematic ways you can make a vineyard run for you to get you victory points that you don't necessarily have to go for I'm going to make wine and fill orders strategy.
Exactly.
And it becomes this incredible story of how are you going to make your vineyard work in your way for you.
Right.
Yeah. And it works so well. Yeah. Your number 1?
My number 1, and it might be because we've played so much of it this summer, is Viticulture with Tuscany.
There we go.
And it's just like you said. It's because once you've unlocked, you've got the mamas and the papas. So you're starting off your vineyard, and you've inherited your vineyard from your mama and your papa.
Yep.
And they're going to give you certain things that you inherit from them.
Yeah.
And then you're going to play out your year. And the whole board, as you're going across the board, just tells a story.
Yeah.
Because you're carrying out your tasks throughout the year. And then it's the summer and winter visitor cards. Like the one that stands out in my mind is the uncertified, the one that lets you build your cellar bigger for a victory point.
Yeah.
And you've got this uncertified, whatever, construction person coming over, and they're like, yeah, it's fine, just give me a victory point and we'll say it's good. Like, your cellar is crooked, but no one's going to notice.
Nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
And it's those cards and the yearly board that just tells a story of how your vineyard developed over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I enjoy it a lot.
Awesome.
Had a lot of fun with the series of playthroughs that we did.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing it more. Like, as many times as we've played that just recently, I'm not burnt out on it whatsoever.
No, me either.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So we all know what your number 1 is.
Do you?
Yeah.
It is it's The Village. Definitely The Village. Village, and actually that's where this whole list came from. It was Village, and it being my favorite game of all time. Why do I love this game so much? What is it about it that keeps drawing me back? And yes, it's got very unique mechanisms, but it's how all of the unique mechanisms create narratives. The fact that your people are dying, and how did they die, and strategically making sure they die so they're remembered in the chronicle. All that leads to story. Yeah. That you're taking your people and you're putting them out to give them jobs instead of just getting resources, and it creates time so they can be a worker for you, and that's going to tell stories. You can even send people off to like travel the world, and it's all stories. Tons of stories. So, because everything in Village creates these awesome opportunities to create story and narratives, it's one of the reasons why I enjoy the game so much. And it's unique in that I don't sit there and go, this would make the awesomest story, therefore I'm going to do it, and then, oh, that wasn't the best strategy.
Yeah.
In my mind, like, okay, this is the best thing I could do for me to get points right now, and that is what creates the opportunity for a story to just naturally come out.
Right.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's always like, well, I'm going to send my guy off in the horse place.
Yeah.
Well, why did he die in the horse place? What happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell us what happened in the horse place.
And I did have a bunch of kids who wanted to know what my favorite game was, and I told them, and we played it, and they picked it up like that. And it took them a round or two to pick it up, and then a round or two after they picked it up, they were doing the same thing. They were talking about how the person fell off the church and died because it was full of pigeon poop. Like, they were just coming up with crazy stories.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So that is why the village is awesome. That's my list.
Awesome.
That's our list.
It is.
It's
the top
pretty good.
5.
You picked some ones that I don't know why did not come into mind.
I don't know.
Yeah. They're good ones, though.
I just looked at a collection and I made a list. I had like 20, I think, that I chose from.
Wow. I was thinking about Netrunner. The only reason I didn't really get into it because we haven't played it in a long time.
That's
but
true.
That definitely comes like a really good story and narrative.
Yeah, I had the Gallerist 2 and Firefly, Euphoria, Epic Resort.
Yeah.
Discoveries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arcadia Quest was another one I was thinking about. I associate it too much with role playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Mansions of Madness. But that might be too story driven. It might have had to be one of these caveat ones.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put in that one. Good.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's it.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you in the next video.
Laters.